Thank you so much, Alan, and Mela and Trevor for organising and for inviting us along. It's great to be here. Indeed, as I say, I'm working with the housing agency, and I'm kind of digging in mainly to the design and build contract, and to how that runs out and our experience with it. Hard to follow Dermot and before that, but I don't have the videos and the photographs of the finished housing, and that was great. It was great to have those two previous presentations. We look forward to Martin ahead of us or after this. But I'll quickly run through where we're at. I guess our remit from the housing agency, as you said, I'm involved with the projects and procurement section. Head up the procurement section, and our remit had originally come from the Rebuilding Ireland mandate, and now with the Housing for All being published, as had suggested or has said, our particular involvement in Housing for All from the housing agency's perspective, and our section comes from the objective 24/7, not necessarily the amount of time we're putting into it, but it's getting close sometimes. So the housing agency, it states that the housing agency procurement and delivery unit will expand and provide technical services and support local authorities. We also support approved housing bodies, but in particular in delivery of procurement, design and modern construction methods. So on the basis of that being published in Q4 of 21, we were mandated to look at MMC particularly. As to the commitment of government to Housing for All and to the delivery of housing, and especially to MMC, we need numbers, and certainly even in the recent budget has published, the Exchequer funding available for 24 is 4.1 billion. And that's comprising of capital expenditure, on new build housing of 2.6 billion, of which that's supplemented by the LDA and other investment like the Housing Finance Agency, etc., which looks at an overall capital provision for housing of over 5 billion in 24, which is a huge amount of money earmarked for capital construction. The focus on capital investment in social housing will be on new builds, with funding support of delivery of 9,500 new build social homes. I guess that's separate to the provision of new homes through acquisitions and turnkeys or other forms of housing. The focus is certainly changing towards new construction and construction that's generated from the local authorities and from approved housing bodies. As a housing agency ourselves, the procurement services that we offer, we work alongside, we provide services to both the Department of Housing, local government, and to local authorities, and through approved housing bodies. Approved housing bodies, we may be all familiar with the like of the Clúids and Tuas and the big players in that field. They're certainly producing lots of social housing and specialised housing, but the approved housing body sector is made up of up to 400 different approved housing bodies across the country. Some very small in various, whether they're tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3. We work with them all, trying to or we work with many who are interested in increasing their housing stock in various areas across the country. We work alongside, obviously, the Department Housing Delivery Coordination Office, which is a key player, and it's within the LGMA. Also, the Office of Government Procurement, who run not just and operate the OGP and operate and manage the Capital Works Management Framework, but they also do a lot of training in this field. And the Irish Council of Social Housing, which represents all of the approved housing bodies around the country. The project and procurement section, the section that I'm involved with, is a part of the housing agency, a small section within the housing agency. The housing agency itself has a very wide remit, but our section is made up of technical professionals. We have architects, quantity surveyors, engineers, and we're focused on delivery and on that real bit of construction. Again, our areas of focus mainly from Housing for All are modern methods of construction, And as we've mentioned, or I mentioned again, the design and build guidance was one of those things that we're doing. We also have a new member of staff, project manager William Bell, who's here with us, who is an MMC project manager who's looking at helping to both the department, as well as local authorities and others in driving that MMC forward. Another area that we're looking at through Housing for All is the building information modelling. And BIM, I know you've had a series on BIM before, Alan, and with the new mandates, that is something that all local authorities and all the sectors are going to have to embrace and get up to speed with, and we're looking at trying to I guess educate ourselves and be able to be a resource for local authorities and AHBs around the country in improving and increasing and getting to that standard by the time those mandates come in, as regards when different projects will have to be BIM compliant at the various stages. So BIM is certainly a big mover and something we're looking at. We're also looking at sustainability and green procurement. You were talking about the measure of construction and how much costs, how much units are costing, etc. But with the advent of counting embodied carbon and how that all works, that's a huge factor as well within MMC and what it can provide and how it can increase. So we're looking into those areas and seeing how we can best support the housing sector in that. Other services we're involved with, increasing delivery, expanding the scope of our service. We're looking at vacancy in town centre first, another huge area. Doesn't necessarily lend itself, you might think, to MMC or to the modular type of arrangement, but there are certainly innovations and a lot of new technologies that can be used for town centres first and for turning vacant houses and vacant units in town centres. We're also working in the domestic violence refuge area, homeless area, and housing first areas as well. Our architects are working with AHBs and local authorities on feasibilities, capital appraisals, and design and project support services, and managing of various projects. The two pictures beside here are one that we delivered in Cork City, is a part of a regeneration, and the top picture is a domestic violence refuge that we're working on the feasibility for. We also look at the procurement, and then we're supporting Cork City Council and look to support other local authorities who are running competitive dialogue processes. And I think that was the top topic of my previous presentation. Competitive dialogue as a procurement and as a public procurement option can also deliver MMC and can deliver other innovations, but it is very much a public procurement process as opposed to it being a turnkey or an acquisition. So that we work with frameworks. We as a procurement and our section is mandated to look at the prior remediation scheme, and we operate that, as well as now the defective concrete block scheme, our grant scheme, which is our office is based. We have an office in Donegal looking after that. So those two programs, we've had to set up public procurement frameworks, and it's the experience of that frameworks that we're able to help and advise in other things, including the rollout of MMC and design and build contracts. Just as Dermot alluded to, under Capital Works Management Framework, it's being managed by the OGP. The PWCF2 there on the bottom area is the design and build form of contract that we're looking at particularly, but there's 11 forms for public works contracts, including PWCF9, which is the framework agreement. All consultants are then under public procurement are appointed through the conditions of engagement consultancy services. That's all consultancy apart from archaeology. So I guess earlier on this year, as was mentioned, we, together with Dermot, at the time he was in Wicklow, and certainly very much hand in hand with the department, we were asked to, and we helped to develop this guidance document on the use in order to promote it across both the local authorities and the AHBs. I don't have nice pictures, but they say a visual aid is always help. So that's the document. It's available on our website, soft copy, and we look to update that as we go along. So it looks at giving more step-by-step approach to how local authorities or others can engage with PWCF2, that public works contract for design and build. And as Dermot was saying, it's not a very purist design and build contract direction we're advising, because we know that local authorities want to get involved, and it reduces the risk by them being able to bring a project up through planning. But the advice is as how to deliver housing as opposed to how to just operate a PWCF2 contract, but we're looking at how to deliver social housing, social and affordable housing through this. Modern methods of construction, it was mentioned, and again, that's the little guide that was mentioned about a simple guide to MMC, produced by the department. The department also produced the roadmap, and they're very useful and interesting documents. Dermot has gone through the various types and the seven methods, or the 7 groups and different sectors and categories of MMC, where we all expect it to be either 3D, possibly volumetric, or 2D. It's also interesting just to look down at the bottom end of that traditional build led with site labour reduction and possibly innovation in site processes and approaches. We've looked at some of the private house developers and builders in Ireland. Many of them are using, they're using maybe 2D panelised systems, but they're also looking at MMC, at developing other areas of innovation that isn't just the structure. For example, they're looking at foundations and programming, and even road construction, and how quickly and how innovatively they can lay roads, concrete footpaths, or footpaths of a various nature. Can they get them delivered quickly? Can they get them into a program that they can roll out housing quicker and quicker? And more we're seeing that, and they're using MMC. So MMC should be seen a little bit wider than just the volumetric or the 2D process. Dermot mentioned, I won't go through this in great detail because he's covered it really well. The various advantages of MMC, especially in this format for housing. Speed of delivery, lean construction, environmental performance is really, really important, and it's going to become more and more important as to the wastage and how much more embodied carbon can be saved from going through these processes, etc. So on the challenges side, early involvement is really important. The supply area is something that needs to be really reviewed and looked at and supported to make sure that there is enough both suppliers and factories out there, as well as contractors willing to engage. And in order for them to engage and be able to roll on, they need to know and have very, very real confidence that there is going to be an ongoing and continuous supply across the country. Number 4 there is just to mention as well that approval and oversight process from a design and build perspective. Having oversight and having a design team and professionals that are competent from an employer's perspective in making sure that the product that's being delivered meets the regulations and meets the what's being asked for is really critical, because I guess what we don't want to see is a number of jobs that because they haven't been properly been reviewed, that they somehow fail, or they don't perform, and that gives a bad name then to the whole process as it rolls out. So having that oversight, having that technical advisor group is very important. Trying to run through this as quick as I can, because I know that some of those issues have been covered already, or some of these things. Various considerations when using MMC. The procurement strategy, and having a good procurement strategy from early on is really important, with the accelerated delivery process that was mentioned. In order to keep that program going, would they, some local authorities are looking to use the OGP framework for consultants to get consultants on board, and they would be an architect-led group of multidisciplinary appointment. Others might be broken down in a different way. Payment structures. The employer needs to seriously consider, MMC involves a lot of significant input in capital outlay for contractors, and so they need, are you willing and are we able to pay for, with vested certificates, pay for materials off-site, which is often a contentious issue. The insurance of MMC and the insurance of those products before they're delivered on site also is a consideration. Site location and the logistics of moving big units to site, it may be suitable in some areas, may not be in others, and that needs to be considered. Site supervision, I've just mentioned, that having clerk of works and the technical advisors that know and understand the technology that's being used. And program, obviously, Dermot again mentioned program and how much program can be used and it can save. But then how you value that program as regards marking contractors on their program, and if they're not being held to that program, the use of liquidated damages, is that going to be used? Do you value it just on a technical merit or on a quality perspective? But you can also value program within the tender assessment from a price perspective. Applying a particular rate to price, and that can add an extra incentive for the contractors to give programs, but give realistic programs, because there's no point in them giving a program in order to win a contract that's not realistic, and then not having any stick there to say, well, there is liquidated damages here, and they will be applied. There has been in traditional design, PWCF 1 or 5, a lot of contractors almost assume that the employer isn't going to apply any liquidated damages. So I think with this contract, local authorities, employers need to be really clear that that's a real option and it will be used. This just sets out the two different design and build kind of arrangements. Dermot had a different view on the two as to the length of time, etc. But essentially, the PWCF 1 and 5 employer design contract. Employer has all of the design team. It's a very simple, well-known, well-established model. The employer's representative, assigned certifier, the main contractor just does the work. They have their subcontractors, PSCS. With the design and build contract, your employer has a design team up to a particular stage. That design team then becomes technical advisors. That's the model that we would use, or that we're recommending. The QS and the employer's representative, remain very key to the rollout and right into the completion of the job. Assigned certifier is also independent, is employed directly by the employer, and then your design and build contractor comes in, but he then has to have a full set of his own design team. His subcontractors or suppliers, which give the ancillary certificates, are crucial as to who they are. And then the employer will also have a PSDP as well as PSCS and their own QS. So there is a lot of potential, duplication of design teams. That can cost more, but then certainly the cost can be recovered through other parts of that process. It's our view. Just want to look at the establishment of frameworks. Again, the recommendation is that you get more value if you have frameworks in place, framework for contractors and consultants. You can decrease the tender time. You're more assured of having contractors and consultants on those frameworks who can produce and who are competent in what they do. Typically, frameworks under that public works contract last for 2 years, can be extended for another 2 years, so you have a maximum of 4 years. We're not recommending. There's many framework has been set up in the past. Dermot alluded to one of them, where there wasn't a stream of work coming out of it. It was set up, and a lot of local authorities didn't engage in it, and that doesn't do anything for confidence of contractors. So, our view is that future frameworks, we need to know that there is a rollout and there is confidence that there is going to be a delivery and a work stream going through that. having those performance measurements within frameworks is also critical, and that they're used so that you have your framework of contractors, for example, that if your performance, and if they don't perform on a particular job, they can be given notifications. They can be excluded from tendering from future contracts within the framework until they get certain compliance or certain things in place. And if they have major issues, they can be actually excluded completely from frameworks. So it does give confidence, I guess, to the good contractors, that they know they're not going to be continually outbidded by the guys that are on the edge. And so using those performance measures we have experience of can be a very effective way of making sure that the frameworks roll out effectively. Again, this is quite a detailed slide. It's for your consultancy frameworks, technical advisors. Our guide would recommend, from Dermot's experience in Wicklow, etc., that there would be individual frameworks of consultants that would be divided out into architects, civil structural engineers, building services engineers, QSSP, SDP, etc. That works very well where you have an employer that has an ability and has the capacity to manage all of these separate frameworks of consultants. It can allow a local authority, for example, that has an architectural ability to get involved themselves with the architecture, and they take that on and they just use the framework for others. We recognise that there are other maybe AHBs and possibly local authorities that don't have that capacity to manage multiple consultants, and they may like to go down the route of just setting up a single operator architect-led framework. But our recommendation really would be to go down this route. It offers potential of, you can utilize, as I said, you can utilize your own in-house design team by using this. Early engagement with statutory bodies is important by using this, and to get all of those approvals in place prior to getting your contractor on board, getting your planning, getting your Irish water. 1 minute. Yeah. That's perfect. Getting there. I'm going to run on your design and build contractor framework. Again, considerations for your contractor, that the selection criteria, you need to be really clear when you're selecting your contractors or putting them onto a framework to make sure that your selection criteria is okay. You divide it into lots for geographical area to make sure that you're not, that contractors are able to tender and are able to deliver within those areas. And the call-off as well, you want to make it as simple as possible for your call-off. Tender stage for the D&B. Dermot has mentioned the various tenders, the various advantages in those tenders, and that's great. Risks, when you're allocating risk, we try to make sure that the risk is allocated to the right person, and those that are best placed to deal with it. The idea of allocating risk just because you can in a design and build contract can lead to real challenges indeed. There's various issues issued tender documents. Again, this has all of those, so I'll skip through that slide. Contractors' appointment. The employer should be considering who they're going to appoint, getting in that technical advisor, and the role of the second last line there, the role of the assigned certifier, the ER and the QS, who carries the job right through, is critical. That the QS, as Dermot was saying, really looks at the job as being collaborative with the contractor to make sure that they try to get over and get around challenges rather than oftentimes sticking to the letter of the contract, which can lead to a lot of disputes and conciliation or other dispute mechanisms. That's really me. The inspection, that's your construction stages and considerations. But thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
There'll be a few more slides.
No, I've went through them. If you need either of those guides, let me know. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.